When you picture learning how to ride a motorcycle, you probably imagine twisting a throttle and just speeding down an open highway, chasing the horizon.
Oh, totally. The classic fantasy of rebellious freedom.
Exactly. You probably don't imagine, like, a strict ban on shoelaces or meticulously measuring your chain slack to the exact millimeter.
Definitely not the glamorous part of the dream.
Right. Or encountering government scam warnings, of all things. But today we are diving into a beginner's practical motorcycle training handbook alongside the official Singapore government theory test portal.
Yeah, we're really digging into the details here.
We are, because we want to show you that riding isn't just some carefree fantasy. It is this highly choreographed masterclass in physics, leverage, and cognitive preparation.
It really is. It's intense.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the stark reality that your deep dive into riding begins long before you even touch the ignition.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the training handbook makes it immediately clear that you're essentially preparing to operate exposed industrial machinery.
Wow, industrial machinery. That's a serious way to look at it.
But it's true. The physical boundaries and safety protocols begin with a highly specific dress code. Like you are strictly forbidden from wearing half-finger gloves.
Oh, so no fingerless leather gloves like you see in the movies.
Nope. Your fingers must be fully enclosed in the material, and baggy pants or, flared bottoms completely banned because they present a massive catching hazard.
That makes sense. You don't want fabric getting caught in a spinning chain.
Exactly. And even your footwear is heavily regulated. You have to tuck your shoelaces entirely out of sight so they can't tangle in the gear pedals. Oh, and if you use a school-provided helmet, a personal hygiene liner is literally mandatory.
It really paints a picture of putting on armor rather than, like, fashion.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, armor.
Because you are straddling a combustible engine block that generates immense heat. You're sitting just inches above a spinning chain and sprockets moving over really abrasive asphalt.
It's an incredibly vulnerable position to be in.
So every rule about the attire is designed to minimize the physical vulnerabilities of the human body interacting with raw mechanical force.
Right. And once the rider is properly armored up, the manual introduces this really exhaustive pre-ride checklist.
Like a pilot doing a pre-flight walk-around?
Exactly like that. The rider has to verify the lights, the horn, the engine oil, the brake fluids. But the manual zeroes in on two highly specific mechanical thresholds.
Okay, what are they?
First, the tire tread must be at least 1.6 millimeters deep.
1.6 millimeters. That is incredibly precise.
It is. And second, the drive chain free play must measure exactly between 10 to 20 millimeters.
Let's look at that 1.6 millimeter tire tread first. When you see a motorcycle lean aggressively into a turn, the actual contact patch...
The part physically touching the road, yeah.
Right. The area of rubber actually on the road is shockingly small. We are talking about a surface area barely larger than a credit card.
It's tiny. And the geometry of the machine basically demands it. The tires are curved to allow for leaning, which inherently sacrifices flat surface contact.
So if you don't have that 1.6 millimeters of tread depth to, channel water away and grip the microscopic textures of the asphalt.
You are effectively riding on a sheet of ice.
Yep.
That single millimeter and a half is the literal boundary separating a controlled turn from a catastrophic loss of traction.
That is terrifying. But I want to focus on that second metric, though.
A chain slack.
Yeah. Why exactly 10 to 20 millimeters of free play for the drive chain? I mean, I understand needing some slack, but is this a mechanical Goldilocks situation where being off by a single millimeter fundamentally compromises the whole ride?
It really is, and it all comes down to the arc of the motorcycle's rear suspension.
Okay, how does that work?
So as you sit on the bike, or when the rear wheel rolls over a bump, the suspension compresses.
Right, it squishes down.
Exactly. And this upward movement actually pushes the rear wheel slightly further away from the engine block.
It pushes it away.
Yeah. So if your chain has less than 10 millimeters of slack, meaning if it's pulled too tight, that sudden suspension compression will stretch the chain beyond its physical limit.
Oh, wow. So it just breaks.
It can snap the metal links outright, or worse, tear the transmission bearings right out of the engine casing.
Yikes. So a tight chain is basically a ticking time bomb.
Totally.
But what happens if you go past 20 millimeters? Like if it's too loose?
Then the danger shifts from tension to derailment.
Yeah.
A chain with too much slack will whip violently as you accelerate and decelerate.
Just flailing around down there.
Exactly. And if it whips hard enough, it slips completely off the teeth of the drive sprocket.
Oh, man. So you just lose power.
Best case scenario, you lose all engine power. Worst case scenario, that heavy steel chain violently entangles itself in the spokes of the spinning rear wheel.
No way.
Yeah, which locks the back of the bike instantaneously and literally launches the rider over the handlebars.
Okay, so it is a critical, uncompromising safety window.
Very much so.
And it seems like the environment around the motorcycle requires just as much vigilance as the machine itself, even down to the bureaucracy.
Oh yeah, the paperwork.
Right. The handbook actually includes an administrative update noting a rule change from the Land Transport Authority.
Oh, the road tax thing.
Yeah. As of February 15, 2017, riders are no longer required to display a physical road tax disc on the vehicle.
Which is nice. One less thing to worry about falling off.
True, but it shows that you have to ensure the machine is mechanically sound, but you also have to keep up with the legal compliance before the kickstand ever even goes up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've satisfied the mechanical tolerances and the legal paperwork. But before the manual allows you to start the engine, you face the next major hurdle.
Which is?
The sheer physics of the unpowered machine.
Right.
I mean, a beginner motorcycle weighs upwards of 300 pounds.
300 pounds of dead weight.
Exactly. You have to prove you can physically command that dead weight before you get to turn the key.
The instructions for just simply pushing the bike across a parking lot are remarkably detailed.
They really don't want you just winging it.
Right. You don't just walk beside it and push the handlebars. The manual explicitly instructs you to lean the motorcycle tightly against your own body for stability.
Yeah, you essentially turn your hip into a mobile kickstand.
It's all about leverage.
By leaning the heavy mass of the bike against your center of gravity, you create a tripod effect between your two legs and the bike's wheels.
So you're neutralizing its weight.
Exactly. You are neutralizing the machine's inherent tendency to tip over, which allows you to use your forward momentum to roll it, rather than exhausting your upper body strength constantly fighting to keep it perfectly vertical.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The real test of leverage comes when the bike is lying flat on the ground.
Oh, dropping the bike. It happens to everyone.
Right. And if the bike has fallen onto its left side, the manual is very clear. You do not just stand over it and heave upward.
That is a great way to destroy your back.
Exactly. You are instructed to hold both grips, turn the handlebar all the way to the right, squeeze the front brake lever, press your body against the seat, and lift using your thigh and waist in one fluid movement.
It's a very specific sequence.
It is. Now, my instinct would just be to grab the metal and pull straight up. Why does the direction of the front wheel matter so much when the bike is completely flat on the pavement?
Well, think about it. If the front wheel is pointed straight and you pull upward, the wheels will simply roll across the ground away from you.
Oh, because it's still a wheel.
Right. You will be fighting both the weight of the machine and its forward momentum.
That sounds impossible.
It's definitely harder.
Yeah.
But by turning the handlebar fully to the right into the lift and locking the front brake, you turn the front tire into a fixed, unmoving pivot point.
Oh, wow. You essentially wedge the tire against the asphalt to create a solid anchor.
Exactly. You are turning a 300-pound slippery object into a fixed lever. By pressing your lower back into the seat and driving upward with your thighs, you are completely bypassing the fragile muscles of your lower back.
So it's like a martial arts throw or a heavy deadlift.
That's spot on. You are utilizing your body's largest muscle groups to leg press the machine up from the ground. The manual is teaching riders how to apply the mechanics of a powerlifter's deadlift directly to the motorcycle.
And that structural logic extends to how you park the machine, too.
Oh, the stands, yeah.
Putting the bike onto its main center stand requires stepping your right foot onto the stand's arm, transferring your entire body weight downward onto that leg, and pulling the bike backward by the grab rail.
Notice how it explicitly warns you not to lift the handlebars.
Right. It's all in the legs and the backward pull. And then when you use the side kickstand, you are instructed to always leave the motorcycle parked in first gear.
Leaving the bike in first gear on a side stand is a brilliant, totally invisible failsafe built into the transmission.
A failsafe? How so?
Well, when the engine is off, the internal compression of the cylinders is incredibly tight. If you park the bike in neutral on a slight decline, a strong breeze or a bump from a passerby could cause the heavy machine to roll forward.
Just enough to fold the kickstand back up.
Exactly, causing the whole bike to just crash to the ground.
Because neutral allows the wheels to spin freely.
But by leaving it in first gear, the rear wheel is mechanically locked to the dead engine. The internal compression basically acts as an immovable parking brake.
That is so clever. Okay, so you've mastered the dead weight, you finally mount the bike, and you are introduced to the 7 points of correct riding posture.
This part is wild.
It really reads less like driving instructions and more like an intense biomechanical discipline. Every single limb has a highly specific orientation.
It requires a fundamental rewiring of human instinct, honestly. You have to actively isolate the tension in your lower body from the required looseness of your upper body.
Let's break down the mechanics of this posture.
Sure.
Your eyes must look far ahead to anticipate traffic, not down at the controls. Your shoulders must remain relaxed, with your elbows slightly bent to act as natural shock absorbers.
Makes sense so far.
Your hands and wrists should form a 120-degree angle, maintaining surprisingly light grip on the handlebars. You position your buttock close to the fuel tank so your arms have comfortable reach.
And here's the crucial part for the lower body.
Right. Your knees must actively and tightly grip the sides of the fuel tank. And finally, the arches of your feet rest on the pegs, keeping your toes pointed forward, actively hovering over both the gear lever and the brake pedal to eliminate reaction time.
If a rider ignores that instruction to aggressively grip the fuel tank with their knees, the entire biomechanical chain just falls apart.
Why is that?
Because the motorcycle is constantly vibrating, accelerating, and decelerating. If your lower body feels loose and unstable, human instinct triggers a survival reflex to hold on tightly with your hands.
Ah, so you tense up your arms.
Exactly. You will naturally employ a death grip on the handlebars.
I see this like a jockey riding a thoroughbred racehorse. The jockey anchors their legs fiercely around the horse's torso.
That's a really good analogy.
Thanks. Because that lower body anchor is what allows their upper body to float entirely independent of the animal's violent movement, holding the reins lightly without throwing off the horse's balance.
It is the exact same principle. A death grip on the handlebars transfers every stiff, panicked movement of your torso directly into the steering column.
Which sounds dangerous.
Oh, it makes the motorcycle twitchy and incredibly unstable at high speeds. But by locking your knees into the tank, your shoulders, elbows, and wrists are liberated to perform the micro-adjustments necessary to actually operate the controls.
And the precision required for those controls is just staggering. Before the bike even moves, the manual introduces the clutch.
The dreaded friction zone.
Specifically, the concept of the biting point for first gear. For anyone listening who has only driven an automatic car, the clutch on a motorcycle is a lever on the left handlebar.
Right.
And the manual stresses that releasing it is not an on-off switch. You have to find the exact millimeter where the engine engages.
The biting point is the literal friction threshold. Inside the engine casing, you have a series of spinning friction plates connected to the engine and steel plates connected to the transmission.
Okay, so 2 sets of plates.
Exactly. When you pull the clutch lever in, you separate them. The engine spins freely.
Got it.
As you slowly release the lever, those plates move closer together until they just begin to touch. That first microsecond of physical contact, where the rotational force of the engine begins dragging the transmission plates along with it, that is the biting point.
That's when the bike wants to creep forward.
Yes.
And if you release the lever too quickly past that biting point, the sudden dump of raw engine torque just overwhelms the stationary transmission, right?
Yep. And the engine aggressively stalls out. You look like a total amateur.
But if you hold it too long at the biting point while revving the engine,
then the plates just slip against each other, generating immense heat and eventually burning the clutch completely out. Finding that threshold requires immense tactile sensitivity in your left fingers.
And that sensitivity is mirrored perfectly in the right hand with the throttle.
Oh, the throttle control is insane.
The manual literally maps out the engine's response to microscopic movements of the wrist. It advises practicing opening the throttle in neutral using 116th incremental turns.
Just think about how small a 116th turn of your wrist actually is. It's almost nothing.
It's tiny. And according to the text, at idle, the engine simply hums softly. Turn it just 116th and it purrs. Push to 18th of a turn and it revs urgently.
Revs urgently. I love that description.
At 316ths, the engine roars. And if you reach just a 14 turn of the grip, the engine wails, indicating you are completely over-revving.
The margin for error is almost non-existent. The throttle cable is directly opening valves that suck highly combustible fuel and air into the firing cylinders.
So a fractional flick of the wrist dictates explosive physical power.
Exactly. And the manual delivers a severe warning about this.
Right. It states that snapping the throttle open abruptly will cause the bike to surge violently forward, throwing the rider backward off the seat.
Which is pretty easy to imagine.
But conversely, it warns that shutting the throttle abruptly will throw the rider violently forward.
Now, this is where motorcycle physics gets really unique.
Yeah, because the surging forward makes intuitive sense. You give it too much gas, it takes off. But shutting the throttle abruptly throwing you forward? Wouldn't you need to aggressively squeeze the brakes to generate enough stopping force to throw your body weight forward over the handlebars?
You'd think so, but this highlights a massive mechanical difference between a motorcycle and a passenger car.
Okay.
What the manual is warning about is the sheer violence of motorcycle engine braking.
Engine braking.
Yeah. A motorcycle engine operates at thousands of revolutions per minute. It's essentially a massive high-speed air pump.
Okay, an air pump.
When you have the throttle open, air is freely rushing into the combustion chambers. When you abruptly snap that throttle entirely closed, you slam a physical valve shut, instantly choking off the air supply.
Oh, so the pistons are still trying to cycle up and down at high speed, but suddenly they have no air to breathe.
Exactly. They are now fighting against a massive vacuum inside the cylinders. That extreme resistance travels instantaneously down the drive chain and locks up the momentum of the rear wheel.
Wow.
Shutting the throttle quickly on a motorcycle can decelerate the machine almost as forcefully as stomping on the actual brake pedal.
So it requires intense physical discipline to smoothly roll the throttle closed, gradually reducing the airflow, rather than just letting the springs snap it shut.
Yes. And that discipline has to carry over right into the gearbox.
Which is another completely different mechanism. I mean, most manual cars utilize an H-pattern shifter for the gears.
Right, with your hand.
But a motorcycle gearbox is sequential, operated entirely by the left foot. You tap the pedal down for first gear, and then you lift the pedal upward with your toes to click into second, third, fourth, and fifth gears, with neutral hidden halfway between first and second.
It's a very unique motion.
The manual provides a fascinating diagnostic list for what happens when you mismanage the sequence.
Because the rider has to seamlessly match the mechanical gear to the current speed of the bike, relying entirely on the sound and feel of the engine.
The symptoms described in the text sound like a machine in physical distress. Like, if you are in a gear that is too high for your low speed, the engine makes a heavy, struggling, knocking sound, and the motorcycle refuses to pick up speed.
Yep.
But if you are in a gear that is too low for your high speed, the bike surges violently the second you touch the throttle, and that engine braking we just discussed kicks in dangerously hard when you let off.
Right, so that knocking sound you mentioned is the engine heavily lugging against the drivetrain.
Lugging?
Yeah, the engine basically does not have the mechanical advantage required to move the mass of the bike at that low speed. Prolonged knocking will cause severe internal damage to the engine components.
You know, it makes me think of trying to ride a multi-speed bicycle up a steep incline.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
If you come to a complete stop and try to pedal away in the highest, hardest gear, your legs just lock up. You push with all your might, your knees practically pop under the strain, but the pedals barely move.
Exactly. That is the physical equivalent of engine knocking. You have the power, but you don't have the mechanical leverage to apply it.
So the rider is constantly listening to the pitch of the motor, shifting up and down through the sequential gears to keep the engine in its optimal power band.
Non-stop. And when it comes time to arrest all of that forward momentum, the rider encounters the intense physics of the braking system.
Right. The manual features a really bold Regent warning about this. Panic braking is highly dangerous.
It's the #1 cause of beginner crashes, I'd say.
The manual says if you grab the front brake lever abruptly, it causes the front of the motorcycle to severely dive, which can easily throw the rider forward over the bars.
Yeah.
And if you jam your foot down onto the rear brake pedal, it causes the back wheel to lock up completely and skid sideways out from under you.
That dive the manual refers to is a critical physical phenomenon known as weight transfer.
How does that work?
Well, when you are moving at speed and apply the brakes, the forward momentum of your body and the heavy machine doesn't just disappear.
Right. Energy has to go somewhere.
Exactly. That kinetic energy actively transfers forward, heavily compressing the front suspension forks.
It aggressively pushes the nose of the bike down toward the asphalt.
Yes, so if you grab the front brake lever in a sudden panic, you instantly overwhelm the suspension's ability to absorb that forward energy.
And all that force goes straight to that tiny tire contact patch we talked about earlier.
Exactly. The tire is suddenly subjected to hundreds of pounds of force. It loses traction, the front wheel folds, and the bike crashes.
So how do you stop safely?
The manual teaches progressive braking. You apply a slight initial pressure to the lever, allowing the weight to transfer smoothly, compressing the forks and settling the front tire into the pavement.
So you load the suspension first.
Yes. Once the suspension is loaded, you squeeze harder to aggressively scrub off the speed.
It really is an intricate, non-stop dance. I mean, your left hand is feeling for the friction zone of the clutch. Your right hand is managing the micro increments of the throttle while progressively squeezing the front brake. Your left foot is clicking through sequential gears, and your right foot is modulating the rear brake pedal.
All four limbs operating completely independently.
It's mind-boggling.
And this brings us to the profound realization that all of this physical muscle memory is entirely useless if the rider lacks the cognitive capacity to interpret the road ahead of them.
Which transitions us into the second source we are unpacking today.
The official Singapore Government Theory Test Portal.
Right. Before a rider is legally allowed to take these complex physical skills onto public roads, they have to navigate a rigorous digital gauntlet.
And it's comprehensive.
Very. The portal is hosted on FormSG, which is a platform developed by Open Government Products, and it serves as a massive index of practice modules.
The categories range from alcohol and road safety to complex traffic rules, precise lane discipline, and overall competency questions.
The sheer volume of these cognitive modules emphasizes that balancing the machine is really only half the equation.
Totally. Operating the controls keeps the motorcycle upright, but cognitive awareness is what actually keeps the rider alive.
Yeah. You have to instinctively calculate right-of-way, process the geometry of multi-lane intersections, and predict the erratic behavior of surrounding vehicles.
But as I was reviewing this government portal, a highly specific detail caught my eye, and it speaks volumes about the digital landscape we live in today.
Oh, but what was that?
Prominently displayed right at the top of the Motorcycle Theory test site is a stark scam warning.
Really? A scam warning on a driving test site?
Yeah. It explicitly informs users that government officers will never ask for money or personal details over the phone, and advises anyone who receives such a call to hang up immediately and contact Scam Shield at $17.99.
That's so specific. Why would a bureaucratic portal for driving theory tests be heavily targeted by impersonators?
It relies entirely on the psychology of the learner and the inherent authority of the licensing process.
Oh, that makes sense.
Securing a driver's license, especially within a heavily regulated framework like Singapore's, is a high-stakes endeavor.
It involves official fees, strict booking deadlines, a series of pass-or-fail hurdles.
Exactly. Anyone visiting this specific site is already operating under a degree of anxiety about passing their tests and ensuring their administrative paperwork is flawless.
They are in a highly vulnerable state, actively seeking to comply with official demands so they don't jeopardize their test dates.
And impersonators weaponize that exact vulnerability.
Wow. So if a stressed learner receives a phone call from someone claiming to represent the licensing authority, warning them that their fee didn't process or their test booking is suspended.
Their immediate instinct is to resolve the crisis by handing over payment details. Placing the Scam Shield warning directly on the FormSG practice page is a targeted psychological intervention.
It forces the learner to maintain their critical awareness not just on the asphalt, but within the bureaucratic process of getting there.
It is the exact same principle as defensive riding. You must constantly look far ahead, scan the environment, and anticipate hidden hazards before they impact you.
So what does this all mean? When you step back from the diagrams of chain slack and the modules of the theory portal, what we're really examining is a blueprint for radical intentionality.
That's a great way to summarize it.
For you, the learner, the ultimate takeaway is that riding a motorcycle can never be a passive experience. It requires a deep physical discipline, from understanding the leverage required to lift 300 pounds from the pavement to maintaining a rigid 7-point posture that anchors your lower body.
It demands microscopic precision.
Exactly. Where a 116th turn of your wrist alters the explosive power of the engine, and where you must feel for the exact millimeter of the clutch's biting point. And it requires an unwavering cognitive awareness of traffic laws and environmental hazards. You are not just operating a vehicle, you are biologically integrating yourself with a mechanical system.
And, that biological integration leaves us with a truly fascinating horizon to consider. We spend countless hours learning to manually control every micro-movement, feeling the friction plates of the clutch engage, listening to the pitch of the engine to dictate gear shifts, and meticulously managing the weight transfer of the suspension during progressive braking.
Right.
But as transportation rapidly shifts toward electric motorcycles, machines characterized by single-speed transmissions, the complete absence of manual clutches, near-silent motors, and advanced automated stabilization algorithms.
Oh, wow.
Will this deep, physical, almost biological connection between rider and machine simply be lost to history? Or will that sensory integration just evolve into something entirely different?
What a phenomenal thought to leave on. The internal architecture of the machine is fundamentally changing, and the rider's mastery will have to change right alongside it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden choreography of the ride. We'll see you next time.